It's Financial Smarts Network. Now, here's Andrew.
Welcome everyone to Financial Smarts Network. It's another Tuesday evening. Tax season is here. I'm sure you're thinking about your refunds, but you should also be concerned about security issues, crooks, scammers, and all kinds of great things. So with that said, we've got a special guest, Eric Erickson with the Internal Revenue Service. Eric, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
And man, we got a lot to discuss, of course.
There always is.
And who better than to have someone, IRS personnel, who can discuss, of course, what, the trends are, I guess, if there's trends, so to speak, for scammers and the crooks. It seems like this time of the year especially, it's all the time, but this time of the year, like the crooks just come out of the woodworks, looking to prey on people with their refunds. And I guess, I want to make sure that we air some information to our audience tonight where they are a little more conscious of what's going on and kind of knowing what maybe what the scams are that the service is seeing and protect themselves a little bit more than normal, right? Just because of everything that's going on in the world. So what are you guys seeing? What is the service, Internal Revenue Service, seeing out there these days? Is it something unique this year versus other years when it comes to this time of the year?
Well, I think one of the big things, the big scams that we see, and this is not something that's necessarily new this year, but it happens this time of the year when people are thinking about their taxes, is that it's called phishing scams. And of course, that's phishing with a PH, not an F. But what happens is the scammers, they send out emails, usually emails, but sometimes phone calls as well. And these emails look like they're from the IRS, and they direct people to a website. Oftentimes the website is a phony website. They're asking for personal information. They're doing something to basically fish for information that they can then turn around and use to file a tax return with that person's social security number and then get the refund, get money from them that would be owed to the taxpayer, and to basically use the taxpayer's information to benefit themselves.
So when they're, and I'm aware of phishing scams, but of course a lot of the public is not. With a phishing scam, there's typically some sort of a link. I guess you guys are seeing some sort of like click here to do this, and it kind of directs them to this site, this bogus site, right? Correct. At that point, have they been hacked? Or at what point does the risk really come into the equation?
Well, it comes risk kind of comes into play the minute you would click on that link. Okay. And so it depends on how the scammers are operating the website. But the problem is too, when they go to the website, these scammers, they make a website that looks like the IRS website. Or we could be talking about another organization too, right? The Social Security Administration or something. I mean, they know what they're doing. They're creating websites that look real, and then the more you're clicking on links, they're just getting information from you. So what we tell people is when you get an email, don't click on anything. If you see it and it seems phony at all, then you need to just delete it. We do have you can let the IRS know that you got this phony email. But the thing that people need to remember is that we don't send unsolicited emails to people talking about their account. The first thing we're going to do is we generally send you a letter. You're going to get a letter in the mail by the old-fashioned mail, and that's how you're going to know that we're going to be in contact with you for some information. If someone gets an email out of the blue, especially asking for personal information like a social security number, it is a scam.
Yeah, there's those scams. I've seen them in the past, obviously being on the tax professional side, where our clients will call. We try to warn our clients as far as things that we're seeing. So this is a good conversation because there may be things that we're not aware of as tax professionals, right? But we try to warn clients of things that we're seeing and just not to do certain things, right? If someone calls you and says, hey, I'm with the IRS, typically you guys don't make outbound calls unless it's a collection case, and then it would be assigned typically to a revenue officer, or if you're under audit, a revenue agent. But you would know that well.
They would get that letter. Again, it goes back to the fact that we're going to let you know ahead of time through a letter that that's happening. And the other thing, I've gotten these calls at home where I'm sitting at home and I get a phone call and it says someone from the IRS. And what these scammers do is they prey on people using fear. And I've gotten the call where I'm sitting there and I get a call from the IRS.
And you're laughing?
And they say you're going to be arrested, or they're saying that there's going to be some sort of really bad action taken against me, and I'm thinking, yeah, right. And it's even though I want to tell them, listen, I work for the IRS. This is a scam. I don't. I just hang up because that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. No, I've gotten one of those a couple of years ago, I think. So when that trend started happening, a couple of our clients called panic, and literally one day one of my clients says, owned a restaurant, and he calls up. He says, Andrew, he goes, I just got a call. He goes, from the IRS. He goes, they're going to, they said they're going to send the sheriff out. I said, I didn't even know this was going on at the time, right? It was a new trend. And I said, forget about it. I said, it's not the IRS. He goes, are you sure? And I said, trust me. I said, the IRS is not going to call. They're not going to harass you. They're not going to intimidate you like that. And they don't make outbound calls. Plus, in that situation, I actually had a power of attorney on record.
Okay.
So I said, in that situation, I said, by law, they have to reach out to your representative. But overall, it was just funny. And I said, did he leave a number? He goes, he did. I said, well, call him back and tell him that you spoke to, I said, your tax professional, your accountant. I said, however you want to phrase me. And tell him that he said, that I said, to go ahead and send a sheriff out and arrest you. And he actually followed through, I just wanted a good laugh, right? He followed through, he called up, he told the guy this, and the guy just hung up, never heard from him again. But, you're right. The absolute best thing to do is just hang up.
Right.
Or if you get a robocall with this stuff, right? Because robocalls are going on around these days as well.
Yes.
So it's just interesting. Are you guys seeing these kind of phishing scams, whether they're phone calls or emails, directed towards certain kind of age or demographic groups or certain parts of the country, or are they just widespread?
They're widespread. They're nationwide. I mean, there are certain cases where we're going to see things pop up in certain states or geographic areas, but generally it's all across the country, and this happens everywhere. And so that's why I don't think anyone, especially this time of year, should let their guard down. Remember that we're not going to make an unsolicited phone call, outbound call, like you said, to somebody asking for personal information, and then if they get it, and just hang up. And the other thing is, if people really did have a question, they'd think that maybe it was the IRS calling. And again, we don't normally do that.
Sure.
But they can always say, okay, I'm going to call the IRS back. So what I would say is, hang up, go to the IRS website. We've got our 1040 number, and you could always call and ask to somebody to call to make sure, see if we were calling about that, about your kid. But we don't do that. So.
Sure, absolutely. In the rare situation where someone does get an outbound call and it's legit, let's just say it's from a revenue officer because they owe taxes, right? What do they need to be aware of? How does that call typically go from the government's perspective, so that the way the consumer, the taxpayer, is going to know that it's really legit? Like, I mean, there's a badge number that the revenue officer or the agent or whoever is going to give them. There's certain kind of information, right, that they should be aware of that the scammer is not going to possibly have. Is there a way, I guess what I'm trying to figure out, is there a way that they would be able to kind of decipher, or is that even a dangerous situation to not, to look at it and say, well, is this legit or it's not? Let me just hang up and call the IRS to see if they're looking for me.
Well, listen, if it gets to that point, remember, people are going to have had a letter beforehand.
Sure.
And so there'd be an account number in there that they could then reference.
Okay.
And again, if they really question whether or not this is from the IRS, what I would suggest is saying, listen, I believe you, but I'm going to call the IRS back and make sure. And so they could, again, call us back on that 800 number just to make sure.
Okay, so even if it's a legit call,
yeah, I mean,
the IRS personnel calling them should obviously give them the latitude to say, okay, not a problem.
Yeah, I can't imagine an IRS person who's calling legitimately who isn't going to understand that this person is going to have some doubts about it, because we know that these scams are so pervasive.
Yeah. This is also the time of the year where, obviously, in the industry, in the profession, we see things with some bad tax preparation. It's not to say that every tax preparer does, shady work or foul play sort of situations, but walk us a little bit through ghost tax preparation, what that means, what the average consumer out there, taxpayer this time of the year, should understand about their tax preparation, and maybe where they go or where they shouldn't be going.
Well, first I want to say that the vast majority of tax professionals out there are doing a good job, and they're upstanding, and they're following the rules, and their goal is to help people file complete and accurate return and honestly, right? But unfortunately, like with anything else, you've got some people out there who are what you can call them ghost preparers, or just dishonest and unscrupulous preparers. They're going to do things like filling out a tax return and having you sign it, having the taxpayer sign it, but they're not signing it. They're going to do things like trying to get other credits and deductions that the taxpayer doesn't even qualify for. They're going to be promising things. They'll say, like, I will charge you a percentage based on the amount of money that you get back in the refund. Those are some signs that the person you're dealing with is probably not very is unscrupulous.
If someone falls into those pans, we'll call it, right? They go to a tax preparer. they realize after the fact that something's not right, right? They maybe they get that gut feeling, maybe they're savvy enough to where they detect from any number of reasons that their return's not correct. What does the IRS suggest? What would be the after pattern from there, the strategy for the taxpayer to correct their situation?
So that we do have a form. That's what I had to look up. Okay. There's a phone number, like with everything, the IRS has phone numbers. They can get this on irs.gov, and it's called the Complaint Tax Return Preparer. It's a PDF form that you would fill out. The number is 14157. So if someone truly believes that this happened to them, they can go to irs.gov and they can download that form and fill it out and submit it to the IRS.
Of course, from there, they probably would need to file an amended return, corrected return to revise, to correct anything is not
right. I mean, I guess it depends on the situation, what happens with that taxpayer. But if they figure out that the taxpayer did, for instance, claim a deduction that they were not eligible for, then they could file an amended return. But I think the first thing that they would want to do is to make sure that they alert us that there is a problem, that they think that this has happened to them, so that we can note that and they can go from there.
Sure. So in that situation, and not to put too much light on it, because most, as you said, most tax preparers and tax professionals do a great job and try to do right by their clients. But if they go in somewhere, they pay a fee to have tax return preparation, and then they see that it's self-prepared or something along those lines, obviously that's the first red flag I would assume that you guys are seeing, and would advise that they need to probably take some action. Correct.
I mean, and there's also things that tax preparers can do to make sure that their clients haven't had their information taken. Like if a tax preparer finds out that their Social Security number was used before they've even submitted a tax return. If a tax return is already submitted with that person's Social Security number, that's a sign. So there's things that the good tax preparers can do to make sure that their clients haven't been taken advantage of as well.
Okay, let's discuss that a little more in depth, just so people can understand.
Sure.
Because oftentimes we just associate tax scams with getting ripped off your tax refund, but this can go deep with identity theft and beyond just the tax element of it, right? I mean, you can be involved in bad tax with a scrupulous tax preparer that's using your Social Security number for tax return preparation and among other things.
Right. I mean, what these scammers are doing is they're using the information to file tax returns on someone's behalf so they would use my information before I use it to file my honest tax return, right? My actual tax return. And so if I get, some sort of notice that my tax return has been filed with my Social Security number, well, that's identity theft. That means my identity has been stolen to do this. And it goes beyond just the IRS. I mean, you've got Social Security Administration, other people, other organizations and agencies that deal with people's information. And so it's not just, I know we're talking about taxes, and that's what we should be talking about now during the filing season, but it goes beyond. Scammers they're not just trying to scam the IRS and taxpayers.
It's a broad base now with technology.
Right.
And I feel in a sense, that technology is great, but it's also become sort of our biggest challenge these days, because as technology progresses, so do scammers and crooks, right? Everything you guys are seeing, though, from the IRS's perspective, all the scams, for the most part, are revolve around technology.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't want to say that necessarily. I mean, I guess it depends that if you think that like a phone call, a phone phishing scam, not the kind of technology that we're talking about with email and kind of things. So I don't think people should let their guard down if they're just thinking about email, they're just thinking about social media and those kinds of things that we think of as technology. They shouldn't let their guard down when it comes to the phone and other things that aren't considered new wave technology, Okay. Scammers will use phishing phone calls to try to get information from people.
Based on statistics that the service has, what do most people fall prey to? Online scams or the more traditional, I guess, in a sense, phone scams from what you all have been seeing the last couple of years?
I don't know the exact numbers on that, but just from anecdotally talking to people, I think what we're seeing is the email phishing scams. That's something that I see a big focus on just from talking to my colleagues and whatnot. So I think that's... And that's the thing that people, they'll get that, and they're so inclined to click on an attachment or click on a link. And because then your information can be compromised so quickly, I think that's why we want to focus on those. I mean, yes, the phone calls do happen, but we really want to hammer home that don't click on links, don't open attachments, delete the email, right away. And
even if it has the IRS logo in there.
Well, not especially, but they're going to do everything that they can to make it look like an actual email, a legitimate email.
Yeah, sophistication at its best. Let's hold tight, folks. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. Eric and I are going to continue on things you should know to protect yourself this tax season.
Hi, I'm Angelina with All Things in Order, organization designed for your life. Well, you can find me if you want to get organized, decluttered, you're moving, packing, whatever the case may be. You can find me on Instagram at angelina.atio, or you can call me at 404-431-2273, or you can go to my website at atio-organizer.com.
Hey, welcome back to Financial Smarts Network. We are here in the studio this evening with Eric Erickson with the Internal Revenue Service discussing what you should be aware of to protect yourself, your identity, while you're working through tax filing season 2020. So Eric, we were discussing, of course, I know a couple different things during the breaks, but we put a lot of focus, of course, this time of the year on taxpayers, consumers who are working to file their tax returns because they are the biggest, I guess, victims, or those who could become biggest victims, because the crooks know who to target, of course, right? You got millions of people working on your taxes. But we also have a different extreme where we're now starting to see them. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but the IRS is also starting to see them. We've putting out bulletins to us as tax professionals.
Sure.
Because with technology, there's just so much that can go wrong. So tell us a little bit about what you guys are seeing, what the service is seeing as far as tax professionals, what they should be aware of, because not everyone has the same abilities, the same technologies, and may not even be aware of what's going on and how we're being targeted.
Well, I think, first of all, what scammers know, these people who are trying to steal data, they know that tax preparers have a lot of data, in their offices, on their computers.
A ton.
And so, right,
It's
yeah.
scary, really, if you think about it.
And so what they're trying to do is they want to get their hands on that information.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that tax preparers can do if they haven't, there's a publication on IRS's website, it's 4557, it's called Safeguarding Taxpayer Data. And then there's the Small Business Information Security. It's by the National Institute of Standards and Technology. Those are two really helpful documents that tax preparers can go on to help make sure that the information that they have stays safe and it's secure. I think there are some signs that tax preparers can look for to see that would give them an indication that perhaps they've been compromised, that their information has been compromised. That tax preparers use an electronic filing identification number. It's called an EFIN,
yep.
Right? And so if they check that and they see that way more returns have been filed with that EFIN, then they have clients. Well, that's an indication that, that's a problem.
So if you do 100 returns and you look and you file 500 that you don't know about.
That's a problem, right?
A huge one.
Yeah. Also, if they're having if they're having some clients who are getting transcripts who never ordered transcripts, or who are receiving refunds who never even filed a tax return. I mean, those are some things that might happen that could come through the preparer's office. That would be an indication that their information's been compromised.
Let's go back to this. You mentioned transcripts.
Sure.
So you're saying a taxpayer would get a transcript that they've never requested?
Yeah, exactly, because that's another way that perhaps the scammer is trying to get their information. So if a transcript shows up that was not requested, that's just another indication that information's been compromised.
Interesting. Now, as far as the focus on tax preparers with scammers and crooks, are there certain things that we should be aware of as a tax professional community? Are you guys seeing certain things on your end? Is the IRS seeing certain scams that we should know about?
Well, I think it someone goes in line with the scams for tax payers, right? I mean, you're going to be getting emails. It's going to be something that they're going to try to get you to click on something or to give you access to the information that they have. So, again, if you get an email that looks like it's from the IRS, but it's unsolicited, it's going to be the same kind of, I think, advice that we would give taxpayers, just to keep people from compromising and getting a hold of the data that tax preparers have on hand.
Because I've seen, some that we get once in a while, and of course I'm just very cautious, but it'll say, hey, I want to do my tax return preparation. I've went to your website, or I saw you online, or whatever the phrase is, and I'd like to do my tax return preparation. Let me know if you can assist me. Here's my documents, and there's a PDF file in there. Scary stuff.
Well, I guess if the tax preparer doesn't have a previous relationship with that person, it goes back to the same advice we would give to taxpayers. Don't open documents and go to links from people that you don't know, that you don't already have an existing relationship with over email or at all.
Of course, that's why I automatically delete those. But man, it's like it's relentless a lot, and especially this time of the year, it's just ongoing. It's every week, and you're like, do these people not ever give up?
Well, I think that's a really good point, because I think you said you have a lot going on this year. Everyone has a lot going on this year as people are thinking about taxes, and I think it's really easy for any of us to just you see an email, you let your guard down for a split second. That's when you click on a link or you open an attachment. And so I think I said this at the last segment. It's really important that people don't let their guard down. I know it can be easy to do that, but especially when you get a bunch of emails and you're just going through them and you're clicking and you're clicking.
We have one of the things that we try to keep our clients away from is emailing us documents. We have a secure portal system.
Sure.
I don't know if everyone does out there as far as professional tax preparers, but I try to discourage as much as possible, from our clients emailing us. Because obviously the workflow issues and B, the most important aspect of it is for security purposes, keep your data safe. So I can't tell someone not to do it, but I highly discourage it, because it keeps everything streamlined. I mean, by the time people oftentimes don't understand, between the time that I send an email to you and it virtually goes around the universe through all these servers, and it may or may not make it to you, right? So, and Lord knows where this ends up if it doesn't get over to you. So that's, are you guys seeing the tax professional industry start using more and more secure methods of communication with their clients? Where are we going as an industry?
Yeah, I think we are. I think that it again, you said it depends on the resources of the individual tax preparer. It depends on what they have that they can use. And so I think what I would tell taxpayers to do is to talk to their tax preparer, if they're using a tax preparer, to even mention, my data and its security is very important to me. What can we do to make sure that we're not compromising that data when I send it to you, however I send it to you? I think you said you prefer them to not send it by email.
Correct. Yeah. No, I prefer to push them through our secure portal system. We every once in a while we'll have someone just doesn't have those means, and I'm like, I would actually much prefer them to fax it over, right, or something out. I'm just very cautious because of everything that I see that's going on, as you are well aware of focusing, targeting us. We never used to be the target.
Right.
And now we've become a big target because crooks have figured out that while they can chase you as an individual and get your social, they can hack into a tax professional's office and get hundreds or thousands or how many ever clients. It's just a scary situation. We're always doing security updates and just things to try to be ahead of the curve. These scammers, these crooks that we're dealing with, which are not going to go away because of technology. Are they U.S. based, you think, or are we seeing stuff from overseas? Just countries where they can't be touched. I mean, do we have any information on?
I think they're a little bit based all over the place, actually. I haven't seen any data lately about exactly where they are, but the bottom line is it almost doesn't even matter where they are, because they're going to be targeting people all over the United States who they know are thinking about taxes right now.
I was just looking at it from the perspective that it can even be tracked, and if they hack or they get someone's identity, someone's money, and a refund that doesn't belong to them, is that money really ever even coming back? In the sense, I've read years ago that it was a broad-based problem for the service, and I think probably one of the reasons why they pushed now the employer's filing deadline for W-2s and 1099s much earlier in the year, right?
Right. Yeah. So people will be getting those. People are getting them right about now. I mean, those are kind of showing up. I think we say Valentine's Day is when you would get your W-2. So.
Yeah. On another note, we've got obviously natural disasters come around, and we can't predict when it's going to happen, who's going to be impacted. But are we seeing scammers and crooks come out and targeting victims of natural disasters when we do get them?
Yeah, and this is, I would say it's the lowest of the low, but anytime people are trying to scam people out of money, it's pretty low. So I don't think you can put weight on one or the other. But once a natural disaster happens, there are people out there who look at that as an opportunity to steal money from people and to scam people out of their money, because they know that there are people who are going to want to donate to help the people who are in need. And what they do is they sometimes will mimic and make websites and emails that look like it's from an actual organization, like say the Red Cross or something, or they'll even create fake charities that look like they're going to be giving money, taking someone's money and giving it to the people who are in need. I think that there are a couple things that people should do. If you get an email from an organization that is a legitimate organization, what I would do is, if I got that, and it kind of after natural disaster, I thought to myself, oh, I should help them out. Sure. What I would do is I would go directly to that website. Again, don't click on links, don't open attachments. We kind of repeat those tips over and over, because those are the biggest things that I think people can do. People can also go to irs.gov, and on irs.gov there is a tax-exempt organization search tool. It's TEOS, and on there you can search for an organization. And there's information about when an organization would show up there and what kind of information they can get on irs.gov, but they can go there to find out, to get some information on that organization if it's legitimate. Yeah,
that, and I always encourage our clients that if they're going to make donations, and particularly rather big ones, that they go there and check to make sure that the organization they're looking at is actually in good standing.
Yes.
Also, because you could lose your deduction outside of a scam. You could lose your deduction if you're donating somewhere and, God forbid, something's happened. They've lost their 501c3 status, or maybe they're in the works of trying to get and regain reinstated or whatnot. But yeah, it's great information, because a lot of people just often, natural disasters come around, and that's how we all are, right? Let's donate, let's help, not thinking of who or what we're donating and where that money is really going. Taxpayer First Act of 2019.
Yes.
I kind of wanted to touch a little bit about on that, because that's obviously something new. What can you tell us about that consumers should be aware of?
Well, I think that what the Taxpayer First Act is going to do is it's going to strengthen taxpayer rights. That all taxpayers have rights when they're dealing with the IRS. In fact, we call them the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. It's several rights that are kind of grouped into 10 overall umbrella rights. And so it's going to help strengthen those, and it's going to also help strengthen our customer service is the goal of this legislation. I think if people have questions about the specifics of the provisions included in the law, the best place for them to go to is irs.gov. These are going to be enacted and taking place even now over the next year or so. Okay,
so they're not fully implemented at this point, then they can go onto the IRS website, review them, but they should expect that it's a work in process.
Absolutely.
Okay. Tax season, of course, is here. We're discussing about all these things. Bottom line is, people watching this show and everyone that's filing a tax return, if they're getting money back, all they care about is
this is the most important part, right?
Is the refund.
Where's my money? Where's my refund? Where's my money?
Exactly.
The IRS issues most refunds in 21 days or less.
Okay.
That is, and then it's a little bit longer, of course, if you don't file. That's electronically filed, and if you chose direct deposit. So you're having the money directly deposited into your bank account.
Gotcha.
If people have questions about their refund, they can go on to irs.gov. Again, we are always directing people to the website. It's very important that they know that website, irs.gov. They can look at the Where's My Refund tool, and that will give them information about the status of their refund. We only update that once a day, every 24 hours.
Okay, so it's updated regularly, though.
Yes, but they don't need to check it several times a day.
No.
if they check
If
8
it's
in the
not
morning.
there today, then it's not going to be there today.
Exactly. And then there's no need to call the IRS about the status of your refund unless it's been longer than 21 days and you haven't gotten your refund yet. That's 6 weeks, though, for paper returns. So that's another reason that we would encourage people to file electronically. Or in some cases, people will go on and they'll check the status of the refund, and where's my refund will actually tell them to call the IRS, and we'll give them the number to do so.
When that happens, is there a reason for that? What should people, when someone goes to the website and sees that, what is that an indication of typically?
Well, it could just indicate that there's just an issue with the return. It doesn't mean that there's anything wrong. I mean, there's anything bad that happened.
They're not getting audited in a sense. They're just an issue.
There's just some
resolved.
questions that need to be cleared up, perhaps.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think people need to panic, though.
Well, because a lot of that's why I asked, right? Because a lot of people,
Right.
I know, but I just
Sure.
wanted people to hear it from you because people often, we get calls like that once in a while. Like, I went to the website, Andrew, and it's just says I need a call. Like, I'm scared. Like, is something wrong? I'm like, relax.
Right.
Relax. We just, we don't know what it is. It could be something
Right.
very, very simple.
Sure.
You could file a return where you haven't reconciled your health care subsidies, even though the penalty's gone, and it's not going to get filed because,
Right.
So it could be as simple as that. But
There's all sorts of minor issues that it could be, and we just need to clear it up, and that's what that's about.
yeah,
So.
typically an audit's not going to happen. I always try to get clients to understand that an audit, you reading that on the IRS website doesn't mean you're under audit. That's going to come down the road if for some reason the IRS wants to, review your return that you filed.
Right.
But on average right now, 21 days versus if you paper file, and that's with direct deposit, you said.
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
Listen, folks, it's been a great episode. Hope you've gotten some valuable information. If you need information or other concerns, reach out to the IRS at irs.gov, as Eric mentioned. Eric, pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for all the valuable information. And you can catch this episode after the fact on demand and any other episode we've aired, other tax season episodes with tax tips at fsntalk.tv. Have a blessed evening. We'll see you next Tuesday.